of the things that you want to always do as a brand is try to inspire engagement with your content. That's really simple with top of funnel content because that's entirely engaging and entertainment. It gets a little bit more challenging. I know a lot of social media managers that spend their time looking at high followed posts. Let's just take Elon Musk as an example on X. It's really hard. That's what I hear a lot when I am doing audits or doing planning sessions with founders. It's really hard, but the reality of marketing is it's really not. The effects of marketing appear hard, but what marketing actually is a series of a lot of simple actions completed consistently that help to scale out your reputation and positioning, ideally creating distribution that will allow you to help convert out users and achieve your goals, whether it's user acquisition or revenue or whatever it really is. But ultimately it comes down to a couple of simple strategies. So in this video, I'm going to cover how do you launch your business, building a social strategy, scratch that, social execution that will help build an audience, to qualify users, to achieve your positioning, user acquisition, or branding goals. Okay, step one, let me talk a little bit about social marketing. And social marketing is such a broad thing, right? I'm gonna look like a total fool talking about this because there's so many strategies that are gonna work with social marketing. And ultimately, I don't think anyone can really tell you the strategy that's gonna work for you beyond a couple of simple facts. Social marketing is about two things. It's about content, and distribution comes in the forms of people quote sharing your post or retweeting your post. Distribution comes in the form of people taking your post, sending it to others, putting it in a sales model. There's a lot of ways to utilize the content that you're putting on social. And it's also really important to remember that when you're creating content or you're having content put out, it's all one piece of the conversation. It's not an end-all be-all. So take the pressure off yourself when it comes to content creation and really understand that social is a lot more today about distribution, engagement, growth, what you're doing with that content that you have to make it an effective piece of material for you. So let's take content creation, put it aside for a minute, and let's talk about how you're going to grow your business leveraging social platforms as a resource. And it's important to think about it in this manner. Think less about how you use social as a consumer and think more about what a social network really is. It's like a highway with tons of people on it that you can consistently get in front of. And your posts itself are just like billboards, you know? The people are screaming past. Some they're paying attention to, some are just on the feed. How you package it will either draw attention to your post or it'll get people to pass it by. Some of your posts, you have an audience that built up that follows you. You've got people that subscribe to you. So some posts aren't really meant to grab attention. Instead, they're meant to continue to nurture the relationship with a user that you have and or convert them into doing something off platform, coming onto the on-ramp. So think about that along that same model. I'm sure we all get on the freeway. We all see different types of billboards. They affect us differently. But in the reality of it, it means that generally there's three major types of content. One, top of funnel content. Funnel content is entirely meant to grab your attention, to get you to divert away from the direction you're heading, potentially stop and have a moment to think about what's being presented to you. Often top of funnel content is entertaining or relatable, to be able to get people where they're at and to get them again, stop and think about your brand. It's not really related to anything to your message, to your overall focus. At most, it's probably best related to your audience and what's important to them. But again, there we don't necessarily need to create content that like puts them in the mind frame of what's your value or what's your core function or anything like that. It's ultimately meant to just please and attract your primary audience. That's top of funnel content. One example of that would be like taking a video clip from a popular series like the show The Office and repositioning to fit the focus of your audience segment. So again, if we're talking about like creating top of funnel content potentially for an HR professional, we might take a clip and highlight how Michael's world's greatest boss or something like that, but his behavior is very belittling to his employees. So a way to make a very standardized thing within our profession, utilizing something that's a common culture clip. Another great thing to notice there is we're talking about something that already has massivization. It's available and seen across many audiences. It's relatable. And most importantly, it's already gone viral. When you're creating something that's top of funnel, you want to think about things, topics, videos, content, whatever it is, that already have reached millions. Make it simple on yourself and just basically reposition the message to your audience to be relatable. This is top of funnel. Again, all it's intended to do is first stop somebody, and then over time, after seeing some top of funnel content you're doing, get people to follow and subscribe to you based off that content. It's essentially entertainment content more than anything else. Then you get to middle of funnel, and this is where I think a vast majority of accounts make their hay or bring to harvest, whatever you want to call it. Middle of funnel content is branding, positioning, talking about product value props, positioning yourself within the greater conversation that your product solves. So it's a way for you to establish brand authority, to position individual products by aligning values that are important to an audience associatively to your product. It's also a way to kind of gain the value of your product or solution in your market. And the easiest way to do this is you see this on LinkedIn, and you see it certainly on video platforms. Frame the value or benefit of the intent of the post within a relatable story that puts people to say, hey, I've seen something like that and this would really apply to me. And again, we call this middle of funnel content because it's really nurturing and qualifying the right audiences to stick around and hang around and follow you, to like interact and converse with you, which is the main point of like creating social. One of the things that you want to always do as a brand is try to inspire engagement with your content. That's really simple with top of funnel content because that's entirely engaging and entertainment. It gets a little bit more challenging. You can use converting or middle of funnel content to start a sales conversation. And personally, I like to encourage my brands to build their sales conversations entirely on social replies. Why would you want to sell one person when you can sell an entire audience of users based on conversations you're having in a post reply? The last type of content then is middle of or bottom of funnel content and converting content. And this is the thing we're just going to talk about very briefly because it's something that you build up over time. As I'm scaling out handles, I'm focusing initially on top of funnel content, first to build my audience segment, and then middle of funnel content to curate and get an audience of high engagement. You're doing great because your audience is going to promote and float your content. It's going to help people introduce to your brand. It's going to build you into the conversations. And this is ultimately what social marketing is all about. Establishing you with the next step or the bottom step is really what people call like the cringeworthy side of social. And that's like asking. Anybody in sales will tell you that you can do work all day long, but if you never ask, you're never going to get the sale. And how often should you be asking? Definitely more than you're comfortable with, but at the same time, not enough, not too much that you oversaturate your audience with asks. The way that I think that good bottom of funnel content really works today is creating them as single standout posts, just like kind of reminders. So our main focus is really creating a lot of that middle of funnel content that's branding and positioning us as we've established an audience. And then really mixing in even more top of funnel, but the occasional, hey, don't forget, we do this free audit. Hey, don't forget, this solution provides this, and it's where the value drop is. The easy way to do that as well is make funnel post part of it, the top section, and then use the reply or the comments to create the actual call to action or conversion. You see this quite a bit on Twitter. If you go back to the days of threads, it was really simple to do this, to build out a compelling story. And then at the very bottom, when people can't like really walk away from it, ask for the conversion or sale. And then after that, ask for the follow-up, the secondary conversion or sale. So just make sure that you're committing and doing a fair amount of converting content. For me, if I look at an average month's posts of like, let's say 30 to 40 posts across a couple platforms, I want to do probably about 5 to 6 pieces of converting content. And like I said, that's probably not enough. But I'm ultimately scaling audiences right now, so to me it's greater to have more middle of funnel content, top of funnel content than anything else. Okay, so that's content. Let's talk about, before we shift off content completely, let's talk a little bit about creative, because the thing that you need to recognize about content creation, it's not that people become great content creators, it's that creators create consistently, and then they're consistently looking at, in a very enviable way, everyone else's content and just point blank replicating it. There's a reason why a vast majority of the content on the platforms follow very similar standards, follow the same setup, punchline format. It's just like comedians in the club. You're constantly working on the structure of your content. The structure is generally as important, if not more important, than the subject matter that's inside of it. And so as you start to build out and understand, one, who your audience is and what the messages they're looking for, like we talked about in the last section, what you really want to constantly be experimenting with and working on is, what is the structure, the packaging of your post? Is it something that has a simple carded graphic that you just see the same imagery and color all the time? An easy identifier? Is it something that runs off of a standardized meme set? Is it a video, and what type of video is the structure of it? So like I said before, the great creators, all the great creators I see, when you listen to them talk, they talk about looking at other people's content and iterating on their content packaging all the time. You know, there's a true standard when it comes to any sort of content creation or any sort of growth at all, is it's experiment, one-off, small campaigns, small shots. And once you're looking at them, look at the engagement, and as you start to see something hit, go all in on that. The type of content, we talked a little bit about packaging now. My main takeaway from this is packaging doesn't matter at all when you're starting, or it could matter a lot if you really want to shoot for the one and done, like one post viral, but those things don't really happen. Those things really happen by somebody creating over long periods of time, working on their content, till all of a sudden they're in the right scenario, they get extreme lift and take off, okay? So don't stress out about it. Don't overhire when you're early on. All of this stuff is something you can do to scale and build your business before you come to somebody like me, or you even come to a social manager and say like, look, I want to scale my business and grow on social. I'd also say that of all the marketing segments, social is obviously the one that you want to have most consistent throughout your business. So starting early, even as an individual founder and founder team, is important. It's the easiest way to start creating audience, which leads to owned audience, getting off platform into self-distribution. Okay, let's talk about the most important thing and the reason why I think people fail at social. Also the reason I think that you should start to hire people on social. And that's really talking about kind of when we talk about social marketing, the thing that people would forget about is social management, which isn't creation, it's engagement, it's growth, and it's moderation of your audience. Okay, so these are very time-intensive tasks for any founder to do, but it's also one of the most important things that you're going to do because, first of all, you're creating content. Let's be honest. Content calendars can be created in about like 4 to 5 hours for a month's worth of content. Like good content. As you start to get down to it, you'll get down to those numbers and you'll find it's pretty simple to go out and create very strong content in that time period. But what do you do with the rest of your time as a social manager? Well, a great social manager will start to look at your ICPs, ideal customer profiles, or user profiles, whatever you want to call it, and he'll start to look at who are these people, who are the individuals they follow, what type of content converts for them, what sort of conversations are they in, and not only will he be studying, or he or she be studying that content, they'll also start to engage with that content. One of the most important things you need to do as an account growing on social is go to where your audiences are, then pull them back to you. Again, going to the billboard model. We put billboards, we start placing them 10 miles out, then 5 miles out. There's another deal. Then right away before the exit, in most states, you'll see a sign that says, hey, X place, this exit, half a mile. That's the converting post. But we have to go out to find them first. So a good social manager will not only be out there engaging with, liking, and following other people, they'll also be communicating with them and their followers within the post. And I mean communicating as a good participant of the conversation, not throwing, hey, this is my converting lead, let's grow your business. Hey, we solved for that. Those things don't add value. People really like when you add value to their content on social. So what can you do? You can use your expertise to build conversation under other people's content. And as you do that on a regular basis and you consistently add value, sometimes that means taking a piece of content that you created and sharing it within a post underneath their content. So now you've got an opportunity to show people that, oh, I'm following this thought leader. I have a little bit of value to add to the conversation that they do consistently, so you're recognizable to their audience. And oh, this is some piece of content that they've created that may either further the conversation or that may take it in a different direction. But again, doing this in good faith to build the conversation. Remember that as a creator, the first thing you have to know is that to support others, you need to build their conversation, drive engagement to their posts. So you start to build within other people's posts and their posting structure. And as you do that and you start to see responses to yourself, what are you doing as well? You're qualifying your ideal user profiles, qualifying the audience that you think you're building based off of the conversation and responses that you have. You know, I read this a long time ago on a Twitter post that most great ideas start as conversation on Twitter and then they're compounded into posts, which eventually become threads, which eventually becomes white papers, and all of a sudden you've got a product. So you can really start to build those in other people's conversations. The next thing you want to do, once you've already gotten to the point where you're building out conversation, exposing your brand and you're throwing those posts in there, which will drive engagement to it, right? If you don't have engagement, the easiest ways to get engagement and visibility around your post is throw it on somebody that has. Waiting for them to put up a post and being one of the first people to respond to it. And then, alternatively, finding that grail of an opportunity where not only are they the first person to respond to it, they've developed the meme that quickly positions it, and boom, all of a sudden you've got a post with 500,000 views, 20,000 views, whatever it is. And it's built off the distribution of your followers. being a top follower, one of the top posts on that account. So that's a holy grail situation for you. The other thing you can start to do with less creators and more of heavy participants, thought leaders, etc., is take the conversation from the streets and take it to the DMs. But even then, I've always found it to be really successful if you're privately messaging off of a conversation you already started on social and maybe adding some more direct value. I typically try to share, like I'd like to keep this conversation public so your followers can grow and learn as well. And so then it kind of becomes a mixed conversation where some of it's happening back channel and some of it's happening on the front channel. And over time, as those relationships deepen and they see you as somebody who's helping to grow their accounts and create more thought leadership around them or helping positioning, then you can occasionally, again, ask. And what is the thing that I would ask for? I'll create a piece of content that I make is really high converting, or I've got something coming up that's important to me, like a product launch. I'll reach out to the thought leaders that I've spent a while engaging with, and I'll say, look, this is what's happening to me. This is what's important. It would be meaningful if you would choose to participate and engage in this. If not, you don't understand, it's no big deal. But I'd like to give you an opportunity to show visibility that this is something I'm working on. And a lot of times I'll do that on a very scattered approach to 20 to 30 different accounts when I'm doing something important. And I'll get on average 2, maybe 4, sometimes 5 to 10 people that will either quote my post from that or retweet it or engage with it. And again, that all drives visibility to your post. So this is really the heavy duty sales process of social, and what I think a lot of people aren't aware of. What are some tools to help you do that? Well, on X or Twitter, TweetDeck's, now called X Pro, is a great way to do that. X is really helpful because they allow you to build lists, and it also allows you to see visible lists that other people have set up. And a list is basically a group of accounts that people follow for whatever reason. Well, if you use X Pro, you can actually set up a feed entirely based on other people's lists, whether they're topic-based or personal-based. So that's a great way for you to find individuals to constantly engage with. I've built so many lists that are superheroes of XX industry, and I just wait for them to post, and then we create posts off of it, and again, help to build that conversation. Or we then use that within our existing post structure to create like an evergreen post and retweet off of that, something along those lines. So these are the simple ways that you could set up. That's for free. On LinkedIn and Meta, there's certainly groups within the platform that you can use to build up your own audience, to help build your post, to build engagement around it. The platforms don't like it, but those things are available as well. I would say whenever you're looking to build a group like that, what you want to do is build a group of meaningful contributors. It really doesn't do a lot to your overall utility or usefulness of the handle if you're building groups of people that are simply saying like, wow, great, beautiful, love it, things like that. You want to have people that are engaged, because that shows both more potential buyers of the products as well as potential investors that not only are you a person of substance and worth, but you're building an audience that is directable, scalable, and usable. And so again, there's some value in that. What can you do alternatively? What's about promotion? I think promotion gets a very bad rap, and I consistently see this because I work in early stage startup. People saying, well, I can't use ads because we don't have the money to do it. Well, sure you can. I use ads all the time, and I know other creators that use ads regularly with a $10 cap. Think about that. Using ads on a very focused basis to create limited exposure. Where would you use something like this? If you're creating content on a regular basis and you see that engagement is picking up on a specific post, it's probably worth running a small ad campaign on, because whatever the promised reach of it, if it's truly going to be a good converting post, once it starts to hit that audience segment, it'll build past it. So many times I've converted something that was like a $10 bet to get probably a few thousand views, and I've turned it into 5 to 10,000 views, almost 3 to 5x what my original estimated amount was. And I've also found that those tend to lead to good followers, to good follower growth and people looking at your profile, which again is the holy grail of social work. So using ads to boost content that you know is engaging is one thing. Another thing to do is boost really common top of funnel content. Again, you already kind of know if you're using that model of like replicating, repackaging, or repositioning content that's already going viral, there's a good chance it's going to resonate because people have already seen the original, or the entire concept itself is something that people are really comfortable with. So this is a good piece of content that you can also boost for a limited amount. So you don't need to, again, spend a lot of money on it. And generally when you're boosting content, you're not doing things like building audience targeting or things like that. So it's a really simple way to grow visibility and reach when it's low, and alternatively, I found it to be just as successful as participating in general engagement groups like we talked about a minute ago. But ads, engagement groups, those are ways to increase reach. It's not necessarily a good solid way to build what we talked about before. your core audience of convertible users. And that's ultimately what you want to do. The best way to do that is to continually focus on content creation, consistently putting content out every single day, or whatever your posting schedule happens to be. Constantly tweaking the packaging, which is the preparation, the style of content, testing out different styles of content. Also, don't go all in necessarily on one platform right away. Try to work across a couple of platforms. I've had success posting LinkedIn content on Twitter accounts. Certainly had success building LinkedIn type content into TikTok videos. I've had a lot more success using Twitter focused voice and Twitter focused preparation and putting it on LinkedIn, where it's more of a dry desert, I think, in my opinion. So you can tweak those, work on that constantly, knowing that, like, if you go back, I challenge you to do this. Go back and look at one of your favorite creators that reaches out to go all the way back to their post and look at their first 10,000 posts, 1,000 posts. And you're gonna see most good creators are building multiple series types, multiple types of videos, multiple types of packages, until they all of a sudden hit one and it gets this amount of views. And then they might not completely lean into that yet. They might still be making a couple things, but over time, they become the creator that you know because they looked at their engagement, they looked at what was working, and they really went all in on it. You're not there yet. We're not there to know what our customers want, how they want to be spoken to, and know how to really pull and build our audience. For now, we're creating in good faith to build conversation, to position us as somebody that's knowledgeable, aware, and can provide value around a topic that we know and care for our users. That's how anyone can get started on social, building an audience, building user base. And the most important thing with this is it never ends. This is the one buildable thing you can keep doing. Audiences outlast products. Audiences outlast companies. Audiences are what's going to support you, so always be building an audience and then focus on the conversation. If you can do that, you'll get successful at social. And if you can be successful at social, you'll be able to create opportunities for yourself, your brand, your product, and your business.